Whenever I'm watching a thriller, I like to take notes for myself to kind of see if I could figure out what was going to happen next. And for this show, I literally made a note that reads, oh, she's going to put people in her soup, isn't she? Because even that does not feel like outside the realm of possibility in this show. Hi, I'm Pratiksha Mishra and you're listening to my review of Killer Soup. Killer Soup opens with essentially shots of this woman Swati Shetty, played by Konkona Sensharma, who is making paya soup. Now she is very invested in this paya soup, like it's very deeply personal to her. और हमें पता चलता है कि this is happening because उनको अपना restaurant खोलना है, like that's her big dream, and that is essentially what she wants from life at this point. Her husband Prabhakar Shetty, played by Manoj Bajpayee, says this soup is great, calls it even killer. We later realize that it's not. Maybe it's mediocre at best, but people seem to hate this soup, but nobody is telling her. This seems like a pretty simple premise. But when you read, say, the show's name, saying Killer Soup, you also think, okay, it might be something similar where someone's going to, I don't know, poison soup and kill someone. No. At one point, the soup takes a back seat in this story because इतना कुछ हो रहा है. Killer Soup has two of my favorite meme templates. One being कोई किसी का सगा नहीं होता, and the second is the Twitter trend where we go, wow, God forbid women have hobbies. That's basically what Killer Soup is. Prabhakar is essentially also conning his brother Arvind, played by Shayaji Shinde, who is a corrupt businessman, and Prabhakar is essentially a failed businessman. But ये जो secret है वो अभी तक अरविंद को पता नहीं, and that's our first kind of plot that comes in. After that, we see that the circumstances pretty much play out how they're supposed to. We find out कि Swati is essentially leading a double life. उनका चक्कर चल रहा है. चक्कर is just such a stupid word. They're having an affair with this man called Umesh, who bears a striking resemblance to Prabhakar, but ये किसी को दिख नहीं रहा है. Then some things happen and a web of lies is created, and Umesh essentially becomes Prabhu in the public eye. This is kind of a spoiler for the first 2 episodes, but stay with me. Once he enters the world of Prabhu, उसे पता चलता है कि he is first deeply out of his depth, secondly is probably in love with this woman and is going to do anything for her. We see how the idea of love in Killer Soup is very interestingly portrayed. One, it isn't obsession in the sense that we usually see it, but it is almost pitiful in a sense. We see how passion also translates to careers. We see how passion translates to wanting to protect someone you love, but in the worst way possible. This is what happens in Killer Soup. सब एक दूसरे को धोखा दे रहे. Everyone is backstabbing each other. There are secrets everywhere. People are dying like it's nothing. The cops are just roaming around trying to find clues. There are characters who are each zanier than the last. अब जहाँ crime हो रहा है वहाँ cops तो आएंगे. Our cops are Inspector Hassan, played by Nasir, and his wide-eyed ingenue, ASI Thupali, played by Amrutasan. Amrutasan honestly is one of my favorite performances in this show because he is the one character who feels completely innocent. So that's essentially where all your empathy is going, and it's just played so charmingly well. Killer Soup एक ऐसा शो है जिसका entire ensemble cast is perfect, but especially are the leads. Konkona Sensharma is mesmerizing. She has played this role to perfection. Every scene is perfect. So show देखते वक्त you kind of start realizing that there's clearly a Shakespearean analogy happening. This is essentially Macbeth. I think a lot of thrillers at the end of the day are just Macbeth. And you see how in Konkona Sensharma's performance, you see both Lady Macbeth and Macbeth. And that's another thing about this show, is that there's a lot of subversion that is happening. Usually when we see passion in cinema from a man to a woman, it's usually very hyper masculine, it's very protective. यहाँ पे मनोज बाजपेयी plays उमेश almost pitifully. जैसे लियोनार्डो डिकैप्रियो ने अपना कैरेक्टर ऐसे किया था in Killers of the Flower Moon, it's almost pathetic to a fault. That is also what we're seeing here. Only difference is कि in Leonardo DiCaprio's role, we weren't supposed to feel a lot of empathy. Here it kind of happens. Usually we expect female characters to be shown as caretakers, as homemakers. But यहाँ पे in homemaking, if you will, she's kind of mediocre, but जो crime वाला life आता है, it almost feels like she fits in perfectly. It doesn't seem like she wants to do it, but this lying, plotting, scheming is coming almost naturally to her. Coming back to the idea of pain and loss. The way this show is designed, even visually and audio visually, is perfect. Even though Killer Soup का जो setting है वो fictional है, we see how this fictional town in Tamil Nadu has a lot of just cultural tidbits taken from Tamil Nadu, and that really enriches the screenplay and the setting that director Abhishek Chaubey has created. Killer Soup का एक problem ये होगा कि it genuinely sometimes feels a little long and starts to feel a little repetitive in the way the story is going. So that's why maybe if it was like an episode or two shorter, I would have enjoyed Killer Soup much more. But for the most part, I was just mesmerized by the performances by each and every cast member, especially Konkona Sensharma. So all these faults kind of fell through the cracks. Another thing I deeply enjoyed about this show is just the visual language and the surrealism and just this almost supernatural quality that comes in, like the fireflies leading the cops to something, or there's this scene where Swati almost looks like she's standing on the gates of heaven, even though none of these characters are ever going to see the pearly gates. Killer Soup is mostly about just love and transitioning and loss. And we see how loss is a very prevalent theme. Also, Anuj Rakesh Dhawan's cinematography complements Chaube's vision beautifully. Sare frames almost feel like a painting. Also, I feel like these ideas of like surrealism and supernatural elements only come across perfectly if the camera work is also excellent. So that's why kudos where kudos is deserved. Also, the set design and the art direction and the music are all just so brilliantly done. Killer Soup is as brilliant in form as it is in function. Killer Soup dekhte hue, in a lot of places I was like, oh, I'm eventually going to get bored of this because what else are they going to do? But wahi baat hai na, they just keep doing things other than the performances, the storyline, the music. It's just, Killer Soup is so enjoyable as a thriller because of everything that it manages to incorporate. And that is why my rating for Killer Soup is 4 stars out of 5.